In sound design, a lot of interesting dynamics and emotion can come from imperfection and unexpected movement. That's because our ears are trained to pay attention to variation and changes. And I find imperfect and struggling sounds easily trigger emotions. However, high-end tools aim to be stable and predictable, so it's very rewarding to inject imperfection back into your sound. A great example is the frequency of an oscillator. Of course, you want a stable unit that tracks well over a wide range of octave, doesn't need retuning all the time, and so on. But at the same time, adding instability to a multi-oscillator setup is what's experienced as a rich analog sound. A lot of modules aim for a clean sound and low noise floor because that increases flexibility. At the same time, it's often things like noise, subtle distortion, crackles and broken sounds that we call full of character and rich. So it's interesting to add instability in things like feedback or resonant sounds. Or create and add fluctuating layered textures and noise. Even when it comes to writing music and composition, imperfection is a powerful tool. For example, by adding imperfect timing and glitches to generative patches or melodic progressions. In this video, I'll dive deeper into these concepts. And for that, I'll be using the random Bezier Waves a lot. This is a module I designed with ADAC specifically because I was missing a module to easily achieve the things I talk about today. I made an in-depth video about the module if you'd like to learn more about all its controls and features. But in short, this creates two independent smooth random voltages with control over frequency, level, offset and shape. There are CV inputs for the frequency and level with normaled cross-modulation between the two channels, as well as inverted outputs, average outputs and logic outputs, making this a very powerful package to inject random signals into your setup. Just to be completely transparent, I love this module, I'm obviously biased, and if you buy it, you directly support me and the channel. An easy way to embrace imperfection is by adding subtle, unpredictable movement to a voice. Here, two saw wave oscillators are mixed and sent through a filter to make a simple voice, controlled with a sequencer and envelope. To add nice oscillator slop, modulate the pitch of only one of the oscillators with a subtle random voltage. To add additional depth, another slow random voltage is modulating the filter. This creates nice, rich, detuned sounds. But can also add a lot of texture and movement to fast, plucky sequences. Quick tip, with random filter modulation, it's great to look for a filter's breaking point. Just add resonance to find that moment where the sound balances around self-oscillation. This works great on filters with some drive or distortion. But also brings out the character of more gentle filters. When used in a voice with envelope modulation, the effect often results in subtle texture and depth. Detailed control over the random signal adds a lot of depth to sound design. The Bezier Waves is specifically designed to create anything from calm flowing waves to more complex chaotic signals by adding modulation to the frequency and level. The bouncier and more unpredictable movement is great for adding texture in sounds. This is the same patch again, modulating only the oscillator frequency and filter. But you can easily push the complexity in sound further by modulating more parameters. Here's the same dual oscillator voice expanded with a panner. Also, a copy of the audio is sent through a stereo delay to add to the stereo sound. Random waves A and B are cross-modulating each other's frequency. This is shown in the graphic even though it's done with internal normalization in the module. Wave A is modulating the wave shape of an oscillator and wave B is modulating the filter. The inverted output of A is modulating the panner and the inverted output of B the delay time. On top of that, the average output is used to modulate the frequency of an oscillator. I love these kind of setups as they give a simple voice so much texture and depth, they start to tell stories worth listening to for a longer time. You can also use random waves indirectly to add interesting textures and movement. Here's the same voice with two random waves modulating each other's frequency. Instead of direct filter modulation, wave B is modulating the frequency of an LFO modulating the filter. And instead of direct FM, wave A is opening a VCA, controlling the modulation depth from an untuned oscillator. Inverted waves are used again to modulate the panner and delay. Just a quick note, if you use a bipolar random voltage to open a VCA, only positive voltages will allow the input signal to pass through. In this FM patch, that means that when the random voltage is below 0 volt, the pitch is stable. This is good because that creates only occasional metallic drifts. By adjusting the level and offset of the voltage on the module, you can control the amount and depth of modulation very accurately. Internal cross-modulation is a great way to add more unpredictability to the signals, but you can also use external modulation sources. Interesting results often lie in between predictable and absolute chaos. Here's the same dual oscillator voice again, this time with panner and a stereo reverb. Random A modulates the panner and B the filter frequency. On top of that, an inverted wave of A is modulating the clock speed of the reverb, bringing out a nice glitchy effect. Instead of these random signals always modulating their destination, the levels are controlled. The level of B is modulated with a slow triangle LFO, swinging the voice between stable and random filter fluctuations. And the second envelope is triggered to modulate the level of A, so it only injects a pulse of random signals on each new step. These tricks are great both on slow sounds and faster sequences. Here's the same patch idea with a faster melody. A short plucky envelope is used to modulate the filter and the clock divider is added to trigger the second envelope only every couple of steps. On top of that, the average output of the Bezier Waves is used to modulate the envelope shape. Noise and imperfect audio are another great way to add depth and emotion to sound. With a modular, it's a lot of fun to synthesize custom noise. Here, a white noise source and bandpass filter are used. To add depth to the sound, random wave A modulates the filter frequency and B the bandwidth. Subtle frequency cross-modulation is added for depth in the waves. And the trigger out of A is used to fire an envelope, subtly modulating the input level of the filter. This altogether creates dynamic moving crackling noises. Another simple trick is taking a regular synth voice and adding noise or a looping sample texture to the mix before the filter. This integrates the noise more in the voice. Here, two slightly cross-modulating waves are used to bring motion to the setup. A is modulating the playback speed of the sample, and B is modulating the filter frequency in a glitchy manner to bring out the high end of the noise samples. Sound design often comes down to exploration, layering ideas and seeing what works with the tools you have. Here's the dual oscillator synth voice used throughout the video. In Dispatch, that voice is visualized as just this synth voice block, controlled with a sequencer. That sound is sent to a mixer and combined with a noisy looping sample through a bandpass filter. A copy of the sequencer's gate is used to trigger an inverted short envelope modulating the filter. Because it's inverted, it now ducks the noise on each new note. The entire voice is sent through a delay, set to 100% wet single delay, so it sounds like you just hear the clean input. Random waves A and B are cross-modulating again, with A modulating the sample frequency and filter of the synth voice, while B is modulating the delay time. This makes it sound like the entire voice is played from a wobbly noisy tape. You can dial in the level of destruction to the setup in detail. I made a full video about noise and textures you can watch here if you like to learn more. Imperfection and unpredictability can be used to good effect when it comes to composition and melodies as well. Here's an example with a simple sequence synth voice, sent through a panner. Wave A and B have very subtle self-modulation to add some interest to the waves and are used to add glitching noises to the sequencer. The gate out of A is firing a short envelope modulating the transpose input, and the gate of B is used to modulate the sequencer's range. Because this modulation isn't synced, notes might glitch up or down during a step. To add more interest to the voice, wave A is modulating the filter, and wave B is opening a VCA, allowing another envelope to modulate the filter as well. That envelope is triggered with a clock multiplied signal from the sequencer. Finally, an average output of the Bezier Waves is modulating the panner for added stereo effect. You can easily push the unpredictability into complete generative patches. Here's the same dual oscillator voice with panner as used before, as well as a nice single oscillator stereo voice with low pass filter and delay. The second voice is controlled with a sequencer driven by the gate output of A. A copy of that signal is triggering an envelope opening the filter of that voice. To add a lot of modulation power, the random master clock is sent to a clock divider. Two divisions are sent through slew limiters and used to modulate the pitch of the dual oscillator voice. Another division is triggering an envelope modulating the filter of that same voice. And another division is modulating the transpose input of the sequencer. The regular and inverted waves of B are modulating both filters. So when one comes up, the other goes down and the other way around. Wave A is modulating the panner, the average wave is modulating the wave shape of the stereo voice, gate B is used to control the range of the sequencer, and finally the inverted average wave is used to bring some motion to the delay time. If you'd like to learn more about the module, have a look here or in the video description. And as always, smash that like, subscribe and bell button if you want to see more modular content from me.